Welcome to Sovereign Space. This is Lindsey Lamb, and I'm here with my co-host,
Raymundo. Hi, Lindsey.
Hi, Ray.
How you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing really good.
I'm excited about this conversation today.
Yeah, I'm excited about starting this podcast.
Yes.
Sovereign space. What does that mean? What is sovereign space?
Sovereign space to me is this opportunity for us to really expand on a conversation of what is sovereignty and the aspects of what that looks like with our internal world and with our external world.
Yeah, it's important right now, I think. Sovereignty.
Yes.
No masters, no slaves. And we need a space to talk about it.
Yes.
You know, we all like podcasts, we like news, we like reels, videos, and we get a lot of our information from those places. And there are a lot of outlets talking about freedom, talking about the government, talking about what is best for you. And none of them talk about freedom. None of them talk about the hijacking of freedom.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we're here. We're going to talk about those things to help you liberate your soul, liberate your life in the outside world.
And on your inside world, your inner space, beginning to liberate and connect your mind, body, and spirit, and work towards becoming a lighthouse for yourself and for your community.
Absolutely. And that's the way to do it. I mean, you got to find a way to shine your light as bright as possible. And really, nobody can really tell you how to do it. There really isn't a method. There really isn't a set of steps. You got to find it. And even though we may possibly be a guide on this journey and expose you to a lot of things, talk about a lot of topics, blow your mind, you're going to have to do the work. You're going to have to find it. You're going to have to stand up. And that's what the community needs. That's what we all need to find. And when we can all stand up in truth and community and look out for each other, we can make some really awesome things happen. The first thing I think we need to get into, or I'd like to talk about, is something entirely fascinating. And it is simply the word liberty.
Yes. Can you break this word down and its meaning? And
Break it down. What does liberty mean?
yeah.
What does liberty mean? What does it mean? Why don't we know what it means? It's in the Constitution. It's all over the place. We got a really, really big statue in New York Harbor called the Statue of Liberty. And up until maybe a year ago, I had no idea what the definition of liberty was. I didn't know what it looked like. I sure did not know what it looked like when it was taken away from me. But liberty is extremely simple. It is freedom from unnecessary or extraneous control. Control that is not needed. Now, it would be much easier if the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution and the state constitution said we had freedom from unnecessary control. We would know what that looks like. We would know when we were being controlled unnecessarily, what was too much. But the fact is we don't. We all accept a certain level of control. Even though, for the Founding Fathers and our state law, liberty can never, ever be taken away. You can't even contract it away. And yet, we live in a society where we are routinely controlled more and more in every aspect. So liberty, it's guaranteed to us. It means nobody can control us. And yet, I think we can all agree that we have all being controlled. We are forced to pay taxes. We are forced to register private property. We are forced to pay fees for services that are owed to us. We are forced to pay fake debt. And when you think about how much debt a lot of us carry and how much time it takes every month to work just to service those debts, it's not economics. It's no longer financing. It's no longer banking. It is control. It is debt slavery. And the first thing to changing anything is recognizing the law protects your right to liberty. It always has. Now, the Civil War happened and created a new thing. We now talk about civil rights, and yet we also talk about constitutional rights.
Well, before you get into that, I do have a question. Liberty has existed always. Liberty exists from the moment someone's born. Yes? No?
If you have the unalienable right to not be unnecessarily controlled, that unalienable right was given to you by your creator. It was given to you simply because you take breath and you are alive and you are on the side of the living.
Okay.
It is innate.
So within that, if that's our foundation, then as we come together as people and we formed government, specifically here in the United States or America, what were those first layers to either protect liberty or begin to take them away?
Excellent, excellent questions. When the nation was formed, when we were under British control, we were colonies, which were governed by England and the King of England. And those were territorial boundaries. And then when we fought and got our independence in the Declaration of Independence, we declared that nobody else could control us, that we were going to make our own rules, make our own government. And if that government was ever got out of control, we would tear it down and start something new. And that was the impetus to the nation. And that worked for a while. And at one time, the states were equivalent to the people. In fact, if you look at the Constitution, I believe it's Amendment 10, at the very end, it effectively says, these are the rights and duties of the federal government. All other laws and obligations are left to the states or people. So those last three words basically say that a state is equivalent to the people. And if you look up the definition of state, you will find that it is people functioning with common law habits to govern themselves. And so when people get together to govern themselves, it's a state, no matter what. That is the authentic, original definition of a state. And that's what we had before the Civil War. But then corporate government came in with the Civil War. And the thing about corporate government and corporations and capitalization is that it is all fiction. It is all just made up stuff, not much different than the Monopoly game, to where we do business and function and get things. But it's this little make-believe world on whatever we want to call it. And we own certain things and have rights, and then we get value out of it. But in the corporate world, and when things are capitalized, they have new titles. And so the deception starts there. It starts with capitalization. It starts with corporations because.
So, if I can just, before you head into this concept or thought, so we've established that the territories existed. This honored the liberty of individuals, of people, and of people to coming together to govern themselves. And then this civil war happens. When we look at the Civil War, I might look at that and say that that was a fight for freedom to end slavery. So can you break down, is that what happened?
Well, the Civil War is a really long discussion.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
the point of we're talking about is what happened right after the Civil War.
Okay.
Because the Civil War never ended. There was no peace treaty. There was a surrender, but there was no agreement. There was no documentation that it ended. And then there was a period called the Reconstruction, and that's should be the focus. And it should be the focus because I know most people weren't taught about it. They were saying the economic change, everything kind of got better. But the Reconstruction, they reconstructed the state governments. The governments that were of people were no longer of people. They're of persons. They're of your name, of your character. And they did that through a corporate deception.
Okay.
So when you capitalize something, you take a word and you capitalize it. You change what it is, right? If you take the word book, we all know what a book is. B-O-O-K, lowercase b, lowercase o, lowercase o-k, lowercase k. Pages, we read it, whatever. If you capitalize the B in book, it can be almost anything because now it's a title of something else. A restaurant could be called Book. A movie could be Book. Somebody's last name could be Book. A street could be Book. Many, many other things can now be Book. And the same thing with state. State means something. It means people in their government. You take a corporation and you slap the word state on it, it's now a corporation pretending to be our government because we, the people, are not part of it. Our names are. And since we were taught about states and the Revolutionary War and how everything was created and started back then, we have this innate faith that this government is of us and is looking out for us because it's part of us. And the reality is that it's not because of corporate deception. It's like liberty. Liberty means freedom from unnecessary control. It is a sacred right. Sacred. How many corporations, companies out there use the word liberty?
This is a perfect place to take a quick pause and let's find out. Chris, our producer, can you do a quick search for how many companies or what comes up to the top of this search? Companies with the word liberty in it.
Absolutely. Looking at the map here, pulling up the name Liberty in a map search, there's quite a few businesses here with the name Liberty attached to it. So there's like Liberty Tax, Liberty Insurance. Just looking at this map in general in the surrounding locations, it appears that there's the name Liberty, and then what the business does, whether it's a tax service, a roofing company, so on and so forth.
And you'll find Liberty Tax Services, Liberty Mortgage, Liberty Media. Those are all industries that are extremely dishonest, that are profiting off our deception by using a word that we, whether we know it or not, we hold dear to us without even knowing the definition or how to use it or how to stand up. And so the beauty is, amongst all this confusion we have in the world on what to do and things happening that we feel like we have no control, the reality is we still do, because our state laws do protect liberty. The words protect liberty. And when you can stand on them in court and make that the subject matter of a court case, they are forced to respond to it. When you try to use it to get out of a ticket or some other thing as your argument, it's easily ignored by judges and lawyers. And so when you look at the court system, the rules protect liberty. And yet there are not very many lawsuits about how companies or governments are violating our right to liberty. Have you ever heard of a lawsuit about some agency being sued for violating liberty, even though it's the number one law in America?
No, I haven't.
And would you not agree that if you were going to get into a court case and sue somebody, the common perception is that if you don't have a lawyer, you're an idiot?
Yes, I would say that that's
Right. So the social perception is that in order to get into court, in order to do the right thing, in order to sue somebody for depriving your right to liberty, you have to pay somebody else. You have to contract with some other person just to get into court, just to have a sensible chance at winning. And so the lawyers, you would expect, would want to protect the number one rule in America, that you would want to protect the people's right to not be controlled. But if they did that, they would be out of a profession, because licensed justice, licensed representation in courts keeps you stupid, keeps you from knowing the rules, knowing how to stand up for yourself, knowing how to function in a court case. They brainwash you into being scared and helpless and allow them to talk for you. I mean, can you imagine a lawyer in a courtroom talking to a jury saying, my client has the right to never be controlled, even though he can't speak for himself?
interesting point you make.
So yeah, liberty's to me, it's a focus point. Like, you really have to get it. You have to see it. You have to see the deception, how it's being used and what it really means, and know that it is on your side and you can bring it in any court case.
So then if it's witnessed, it's seen, then it's understood that this is a born right, maybe a natural right. How do you then defend that through society here?
I mean, you definitely got to know when you're being unnecessarily controlled.
So when we look at our outer world, does that look like, I suppose that could look like surveillance, freedom from unnecessary control would mean
Surveillance,
that
I
I
think,
don't
is
need to
tricky.
be,
I think it's tricky because
okay.
gathering in the input, watching the world, hurts nobody. Taking that information and using it against somebody to control them, that's the problem. And
Excellent
so we
point.
get focused on the surveillance and we freak out. Oh, they know everything about me. They do this. I mean, no one's going to be able to stop somebody from watching you walk down the street, ever, ever. Now, the fact that the government is watching everything we do and all of our internet activities, it doesn't impede our happiness. It doesn't keep us from doing anything. It might scare us, but until they use that information to keep us from doing what we want. And that's the thing, is we get distracted by fears over here and fears over here and good things over here. We conscious doesn't even see when they impose measures that control us. And in most times, half the population is cheering for it. They want it. They think it's the solution to something.
Yeah, well, that point brings me to when we look at liberty on the inside, on our inner world, the insides of our being, of our physical vessel, which can include doctrination, can include your beliefs. And those beliefs can be or come from, right, your place of nurture, your home, your parents, your family, your upbringing. And then the next level of that would be our schooling. The next level of that would be obviously government or news and media. Might not look like control at first, but when really boiled down, it is an opportunity to control your thoughts and beliefs, control how you then operate throughout your day, can control your ability to live your life's purpose, liberate yourself in any sense of that word, meaning liberate yourself through purpose-driven work. These thoughts or beliefs, when we have them, can be a beautiful thing, but can also be, if they are not from discernment or obtaining new information, to make a judgment on whether that is a belief that we want to associate with, not a belief that has been given to us. That is more a discernment. That is more freedom than beliefs handed to us or given or told or expected to us. And then we also could see liberty in a place of food, bringing this control into the food realm in ingredients, in biotechnology, food being patent or sprayed with chemicals.
You think is food,
Yes.
but it's really not food. It's like the book. It's been capitalized food. We think that it's food, but it's who knows what it is. It could be anything. Where do, if your beliefs aren't given to you, where do they come from?
That's a great question.
Well, I think it aligns to being able to discern the difference between the truth and commerce, like knowing the difference between book and book. There is a clear difference, and to know the difference, you have to give a damn about the truth. What is true versus what you believe. Our beliefs can manifest from a lot of things. A lot of them manifest from a content we digest, whether it's artificial content or real people-to-people content. But I do think that there is a very important distinction to be a pursuer of the truth. Because if you are not a pursuer of the truth, you will ultimately believe somebody else's story. And I don't think you can come up with your own beliefs, true sovereign beliefs, if you don't have some kind of relationship to the truth or the pursuance of it. Because if you're just digesting what other people say and think and coming up with your own beliefs based off that input, they're still not yours. You didn't come up with them.
No, borrowed concepts, borrowed ideas, borrowed agendas. And that layer, you're not seeing where that came from, who created it, what their purpose was or is, and what that's tied to, and what the long-term perspective is there. Or short-term.
And it's tricky. It's tricky to like have a problem or want a solution and to think about you coming up with it first, you solving your own problem, creating your own thing before you go outside, before you go elsewhere. Because even in economics, when you're forced to trade with somebody like globalization and you have to go to another country for a resource, there is an element of control. Anytime somebody has something you want, they control you to some degree. And when you're in a globalized economy where we have to get wheat here, we have to get soy here, we need them. We are dependent on them. We are not sovereign. We cannot handle our own affairs if we need somebody else's stuff. And so in today's age, it's not really realistic to be able to just create all of your own stuff. You do have to probably purchase some things that somebody else made. But simply that awareness of what's really going on, recognizing whether you're purchasing something for a genuine need and you looked at the alternatives, or whether you're purchasing something just because you've realized you wanted it this morning. Like you could be purchasing the exact same thing. But the awareness, the discernment, like you said, that really is everything. That's what everything comes down to, is seeing it from the right perspective. Are you seeing the perspective that you're being sold, or are you seeing the perspective that is real, that is true? And that's a journey. It's a sovereign journey.
So we've been talking about liberty.
Liberty. It means so much to me.
Yes. This unnecessary control. Where might we see or run into an effort to control on a day-to-day basis?
Just open your eyes.
Okay.
No, a great example. See, we all just accept a story. We're all just convinced that this is the way things are, the way things always have been, or the way things are supposed to be. And if you don't have the definition of liberty and know what it is, then anything makes sense. Anybody can craft a story or hijack your consciousness emotionally and make you think something is absolutely the way. For example, when a vehicle pulls behind you and they have emergency lights on the top of the car and those emergency lights are on, the law says you're supposed to pull over for any emergency vehicle. Now, if you understand the definition of emergency, an emergency vehicle with lights on behind you is going to an emergency and you need to get out of the way. But when a single cop pulls behind you with their lights on, you just pull over and wait for them to come talk to you. And the police have the right to stop you in traffic per the state law if they suspect you of a crime. And because they have that authority and they have the authority to use emergency lights, we believe the story that they're always doing the right thing and that if they're pulling us over, we've done something wrong and that we should be punished to some degree. And the best we can do is to try to weasel out of it, minimize it, or just make it go away. Because deep down, we know it's not right. We know that because our light's out, we don't have the right sticker on our plate, or we were traveling over the posted speed limit. We should not be controlled for those things. We should not have time taken out of our day or time taken out of our day a month from now to go into a courtroom and have to talk about not having the right paperwork or the right stickers. And that is where the control is either necessary or it's not. Necessary control is when, A, you've consented to it, you've asked for it, you've agreed to it, it is clear and present and known. Or there's been a crime, there's been a harm, there's been a wrong, and you may be a suspect or you may know something about it. Then the law dictates that they have a certain amount of control to question you or arrest you with witnesses and evidence and the actual legal process that would convict somebody. But when you are controlled and there is no crime and you didn't agree to it, your inalienable right is being violated. Your right to liberty is being deprived. So in every traffic stop that doesn't include a warrant or an actual event that could be construed as a crime, they're violating your rights. They are depriving you of liberty on every traffic stop where you didn't commit a crime. And since we are confused about the state, we believe these rules are for us, that this government is for us, and that when they make a rule that it's right. But the reality is none of them pay attention to liberty when they write laws. And our agreement, our consent to traffic stops has been hijacked because we watch a lot of cop TV. We watch a lot of investigative movies where they're trying to get the bad guy, and we see how cops act and how they can pull over and question people. And we see it over and over, and we see that as just the way. And we get conditioned and brainwashed into it. So it is an intentional effort. And it's not terribly different than when we watch TV and we see a bunch of happy people on a commercial telling us that there's something wrong inside of us and that we're not going to be happy until we purchase their profitable product, and how our internal sovereignty is sacrificed through commercials and marketing and profit.
Marketing is really, I feel like really can prey on the open containers that we are. I mean, open containers meaning that our eyes are open, not always for an advertisement might the sound be on, but an open container to just like bring this information in, and whether or not we were looking for or needing that product, the invitation to align to some happiness or a pitch of something that we might even know that we don't need can really prey upon this openness for a sort of hijacking that's unnecessary.
Yeah, because it doesn't necessarily serve you. The story will say it serves you. This is the best thing for you. This is how you become happy. And time again, that's not the case.
Can we go back to, okay, I'm driving my car and ambulance or a fire truck is behind me, lights on, sirens going. I pull over, they continue on to the emergency, right? So a fire truck does not pull over, or they do not pull over and get out of the vehicle and then address me as the driver. And neither does an ambulance. We see this with only one type, and that is with police officers. Is speeding an actual crime, or is speeding only when it jeopardizes other humans? Is that then perceived as a crime? Meaning driving recklessly at super high speeds versus going 5 miles over the speed limit. Can you kind of break down what the difference between the severity
Yeah,
in
I mean,
crime.
a crime has a victim.
Okay.
Somebody endured something. Somebody experienced a harm, and
So
that
in
could be
this
property. That could be property damage. Their property was damaged. That's a harm. So a crime, unless it was an accident, a crime could have occurred. And if a crime did occur, then it was for somebody's intention or lack of awareness. But in terms of speeding, yeah, there's a difference between going 5 miles and over and jeopardizing everybody's safety. And yeah, I think that's the part where things need to get in court. I mean, if somebody thinks I was endangering other people when I didn't, that's something that would be discussed in court. That's the whole process of witnesses, evidence, stuff like that. And that's how the legal system's supposed to work. You're supposed to have a process to determine if there was a crime and if there was punishment due. And we skip that part. We go straight into breaking the rules. And so, yeah, when you're traveling around, unless you hit somebody, almost hit somebody, or created some other kind of damage, you should be left alone.
okay.
The police hijack your liberty. They know that you're going to pull over simply because they are telling you to, even though they can only tell you to do things in certain situations.
Now, is there such thing as obstruction of justice if you don't pull over? Evading a police are those
That's
things
perfect. That's perfect.
crimes?
Chris, can you do us a favor? Can you search up obstruction of justice in the state of Colorado or statute? I think it's 18-8, maybe 104. I read a lot of statutes. Can you look and read 104, section 1.5? That means
Yep, I got it pulled up right here. Section 1.5, a person shall not be charged with the offense described in subsection 1 of this section because the person remains silent or because the person stated a verbal opposition to an order by a government official.
that means you can tell a cop no, and you are not obstructing justice. If there's a crime, if the cop saw somebody shoot somebody and is in the process of putting cuffs on them, and you get in the way, you're obstructing justice. If you're verbally assaulting a cop, you're obstructing justice. If you're saying no and keeping your mouth shut, you are always in the right. And that's the firmeza, that's the firmness, that's the strength. So yeah, and that's the thing we got to find. And nobody can give it to you. Nobody can teach it to you.
That's power. That's powerful to know and yeah, to maybe even welcome in the opportunity or to know that that opportunity is available if in that circumstance.
Now, you may tell a cop no, and you may get arrested. You may get thrown in a cop car and you may have to spend a night in jail. And that may convince you that you did something wrong, but it is just the story. When you see a judge and when you can start to speak and you know enough about the statutes, you can express you did nothing wrong by keeping quiet. That is your Fifth Amendment right, and it's a specific statute in the state of Colorado.
Okay.
And having that belief and even the knowledge, I think, is really what makes the difference. Knowing people can do that and be successful in court, because nobody thinks they would ever be successful by going against a cop in court for any reason.
Yeah.
Hey there, producer Chris here. Thanks for watching and listening to Sovereign Space. We'll be right back after this short message.
Hi, I'm Raymundo. Sticking up for your rights is challenging when you don't have support. And in the courts, it's not easy to help each other. However, if you go to aguajiro.net, there are resources for you to create your own private express trust, free templates for not only the trust, but other documents you'll need along the journey. Join the community, stand up for yourself.
Yo, it's Lindsey Lamb. Our food system is stressed. We are stressed. Even organic produce doesn't carry the same vitamins and minerals they once did. When our cells don't get what they need, we definitely feel it. Cravings, inflammation, brain fog, and fatigue. I started the daily doTERRA Foundational Wellness Bundle to rebuild from the inside out. Reclaim your wellness. It's an inside job. Follow Inner Space is the place.
Okay, so this is power. Knowledge is power. And in order to witness or take our liberty back or bring liberation into our daily functions, no is a really powerful word all the way around, whether that is with an officer or anyone around us in our lives. Is there anything else on this particular look into everyday life that could be affecting
Well,
this
that's
unnecessary control?
you got to take a look at your life. You got to look at things and look at the control in your life. Look at the things that you do, you feel you have to do that you don't want to do. Even if it's working, even if it's paying bills. Is there any truth there? Is there an equitable exchange? Are you doing something for something else? Like you go to your job, you're giving up your time for something. That is an equitable exchange. Now,
Yes.
the terms of whether they're respecting your rights or not controlling you is a different topic. But yeah, paying debts, paying bank debts. How much money has the banks loaned us? Multiple 30, 40 trillion dollars? Nobody had $40 trillion to loan anybody. No other country gave it to us to loan it to us. It was created when it was asked for. Fiat debts are not real. Fiat debts are deprivation of liberty. Fiat debts are unnecessary control. If the money's fake, the debt's fake. The money's not real. It's a debt note. It's just bookkeeping that they use that come up to balance the books, and it requires debts and credits. And they only tell us about the debits and the debts, and they convince us we have to pay it back because it makes sense because we didn't have it before. We got something new. Paying it back makes a lot of sense until
But
you
they
see the
also
truth.
didn't have it before, and they created it for the purpose of,
Right, in 1933, the
and
fake money.
especially in the, say, a revolving or um, credit card debt, that is just a number that began to exist on a statement.
Yeah, you use the card to get purchases,
Mm-hmm.
but you signed an agreement that you would promise to pay, and even that feels like you created a debt. I promised to pay, I got to do it. But the civil law, the statutory rules, 1933 said when you create a promise, a note, you can exchange that for fiat dollars through the Federal Reserve. So all we got to do to create the fiat is ask for it. The lie and the deception and the fraud comes in when they say you have to pay it back. And if you look at it, it doesn't always make sense. They get the numbers wrong all the time. How can you get the numbers wrong on money you lent me that was yours?
And way more money than you initially borrowed.
Exactly. But why would you need a deed of trust if the debt was real? Why would you need
Well, can you explain then what a deed of trust is?
a deed of trust? Is a document that mortgage companies and the state trustee and the state government require or put as part of the home purchase process. See, when you purchase a home, you give a note and an application. Now, per the Federal Reserve Act, that turns into enough money to purchase the house. So the money comes from the Federal Reserve. You gave the equity first with the note, you got back the fiat. Now, they put the banks in the way from that exchange, and the banks lie and they change the story. They make it look like you're asking them for the money and they're going to give it to you. And you have to earn it. That you have to have good credit. You have to earn this money already when you don't, because the law says, Federal Reserve Act says any note. All you have to do is ask for it. But the banks put in the layer of deception that A, you have to qualify, and B, you have to pay it back. And that's just not true. It's just a bank lie. In fact, the Supreme Court has ruled that the banks cannot lend out their value, their credit, nor can they lend out the value or credit of somebody else. The only thing banks do is convert your credit into fake money.
So on this, right, I guess this is another example of where would we encounter this unnecessary control when someone goes to a bank and wants to either take out a loan or a credit card, and the bank denies that or declines that ask.
Mhm.
Wouldn't that be unnecessary control? Then if being alive and this fiat system, then wouldn't we be able to borrow as much as we wanted when we need it then?
That's the way the system's set up. The banks are in the way. The banks have always been in the way.
And deciding whom and what and when, how, where.
And the banks did the Civil War. So the banks have this amazing power right now over the fake money, and they're also the ones that instigated and made the Civil War happen. It's all connected. But to get back to the original question, you are being unnecessarily controlled from every angle, and you need to see it. And yeah, the debts are fake. Unless your friend gave you money, if money came from a bank, the presumption that you have to pay it back is a deprivation of your liberty. It is unnecessary control because it's not real. Okay. It's necessary control if it was real. If the bank actually had the gold, or a company or anybody had the value and lent it to you, paying it back would be the right thing, even with interest. and forcing you to pay it back or taking something from you of equal value would be necessary. It would be necessary. But nobody ever lent you anything. No other person, no other value, no other company, nobody has the gold in their vault and put it in your hands.
So you're saying, just to clarify this point, that dollar for dollar lent out by creditors, that is not backed dollar for dollar by gold,
Correct.
then
It's all made up. It's all a story.
just wanted to clarify
And
that.
that is the biggest attack of our liberty and unnecessary control is the story, is believing the story, and everybody's in on it. And that's why it's such a challenging effort, is to be able to see it, see the Monopoly game. You know, the reality of our life is that you went bankrupt in Monopoly and then you got to pay it back several days later. That's how because it's all just made up rules. You know, if they used that little piece, if that little car was actually your social security card and had your picture on it and you went bankrupt, you could probably convince a child that they still owed all that money, and they would probably go try to get it. That's all it is. They tell us that we owe a debt, and we believe them, and we pay it, and we suffer for it.
Do you know what year the game Monopoly came out?
I know that it was originally invented by a school teacher to teach kids of the terribles of capitalism, but I do believe one of the big toy companies bought it in the early 30s. It was right around the same time the fake money was created.
Okay, so about the same time that we entered into this commerce realm.
Right.
Okay.
And playing the game of life, going around and around, buying properties, renting, risking doctor visits, and in tax hits or going to jail because of the rules. And we just keep playing.
Both of the game of life and Monopoly both represent an interesting way that we see this programming can happen to kind of numb the reality that is this fiat system. Thinking that it's the way, or thinking that accumulating this fiat can change the great value that you have of your energy and create this separation, if you will. And unnecessary control.
It's the story that deprives you of liberty. The truth is you cannot be controlled, but the state government, the banks, corporate America are all supporting the story. And so if you're looking for validation that your rights are going to be protected out there, you're just going to get more story. You have to know it inside. And one comfort that is available at aguagiro.net is a template for a lawsuit for the deprivation of your right to liberty. So it can be applied for many different aspects. Yeah, that you at least have a weapon in the fight. But knowing that we get caught up in this story on TV and movies of cops and judges, how that this system is supposed to work, it affects our day-to-day life. It can also affect our internal side, our internal vessel, that deprivation of liberty.
Absolutely. A couple ways that we see that affect our inner agency or liberty, being able to use our discernment for our independence, being able to use that. We see that in TV and media and movies with someone else's idea of the world, someone else's perspective of the world, whether that be a love story in someone else's perspective of a relationship and how a relationship could or should function, can create an inner belief that that's how things should go for me or are in reality, and not remembering that that is another person's perspective. We don't even know that person or who they might work for, what their intention might be. And so TV shows, movies, and media all create a separate perspective of a story. And whether all good intentions might be to watch this for entertainment's sake, we might also have our inner world attached to some of that story as a new belief. Liking the story, it feeling good, can create a sort of inner world confusion that this is now my new belief. And then where we also might see it is with the medical industry. Each individual person knows their individual experience the best because they are the one living that experience. There is only one perspective that is within each one of the human body. And so within that one individual, let's take myself, for example, I am the only one living in this physical body. So whether I'm experiencing emotions of higher frequencies, happiness, joy, gratitude, or I'm experiencing some lower frequency emotions of shame, fear, and embarrassment. Those are my experience and my experience alone, because I'm the only one in this vessel. Now, when the human being starts to have some dysfunctions within their inner world, meaning some symptoms of discomfort, some not optimal wellness or inner balance, we might seek a doctor. And definitely within the American programming, we have been taught that we must see a doctor, that only a doctor knows what this could mean, what these symptoms are, and whether that is physical or mental symptoms or experiences that leads us to this concept of seeking outside validation or clarification of what we're experiencing on the inside. And so in this instance, an individual then goes to their doctor, lets them know what their symptoms are, and then that doctor makes a recommendation, oh, got to refer you to a specialist. Then this specialist is looking at just one compartment that they specialize in, not even necessarily seeing the whole picture. That might lead to another specialist, which might lead to another specialist. And so now this experience that someone is having within their own vessel has now spread like a game of telephone in a way to outside individuals, and maybe multiple, and those individuals are not talking to each other about your experience, or maybe they are. Then there is this extra layer of incentive to prescribe a synthetic. And earlier we mentioned with Liberty that we can see unnecessary control outside of nature. And this idea of the pharmaceutical industry there to perhaps, or at least the messaging and marketing behind it, is to help with the symptoms. Pharmaceuticals don't seem to ever solve the issue. They only tend to the symptoms. Because if you were really coming to the cause of it, then you probably wouldn't need the pharmaceutical for that long if it was going to actually address that. And so this idea of unnecessary control comes in this way that we're getting a recommendation from an outside being as to what we should do with our vessel and our experience. And then we are additionally taking some scientist cook in a lab who's come up with a combination of synthetic things to further dilute our discernment. And so we may need or want for outside conversation as to what we would want to do with our bodies to solve this issue that might be happening. But to take a prescription that a doctor writes and to follow suit, to follow that all the way through, take it to the pharmacy, get it filled, then be on this pharmaceutical, on this recommendation, is complete unnecessary control. I believe that all human beings come from a space and we're designed perfectly. Our bodies are incredibly intelligent, right?
Doctors will give you a prescription for multiple different symptoms or for multiple possibilities. When we took my daughter into the doctor a few months ago, he says, well, it could be this or it could be this. Here's a prescription for two things for both of them.
Without definitively knowing.
Without knowing, they just said, take this stuff and this combination will make it go away. So they didn't even really know.
Okay. In the case of me directly, at a certain point in my life, I was having symptoms of numbness, paralyzation, and seeking a primary care physician that referred me to a neurologist who only looked at my brain and nervous system, didn't take a look at any of my other internal systems like my intestinal tract or my gut, then made a recommendation or a curse, if you will, of an incurable disease called multiple sclerosis. And within that particular disease, it is mysterious symptoms that are different in every human being. And then this peek into just one of our internal systems, that being the brain, and then a look at the synovial fluid, then, okay, here we are. We have this diagnosis of an incurable disease. And so this is a direct example of unnecessary control and actually a human being then surrendering control to another. saying, well, this doctor knows best and I am fully broken and unfixable. And although no one in exactly, and they can't quite tell me what this disease is, how it occurred in the body, how to tend to it in a natural way and non-synthetic way. And well, here you go. Here is your sentence for the rest of your life. And so, although there may be instances where information that a doctor has might be useful, understanding that we can use that information as one sliver of possibility to finding our own truth, seeing if and using our own discernment to see if that information aligns, or is this unnecessary control? Is there another way? Is there a way for me to change my diet? My circumstances, the information that I'm bringing in through my eyes, my ears, is the environment around me affecting this new evidence of symptoms? Is the food I'm eating, is the information down to my beliefs, feeding this opportunity for me to give up control over my own vessel? And so a strong belief for an individual that we are made perfectly, that we were born with this liberty. And when seeking the truth, again, slivers of information from different parts so that you're able to discern for yourself what is true for me and what isn't. Or some people's truth might be attaching to a story that someone has given them at a doctor's office.
Yeah, and I mean, those stories sometimes do good. Sometimes a story is exactly what you needed, but it's just the story.
Yes.
So the discernment there.
And on story, I think to a certain degree, story can hold us back in a place of control when that story becomes romanticized over time in our lives, when a story can be our identity and our title. And a story can feel firm and fixed versus the environment that we're truly in here on earth, which is evolutionary, which is ever changing, which is gaining more knowledge, allows for more discernment to see what now aligns with that new information that was received.
And just be, that is part of
Yes.
our experience. Just being awesome.
And I would say that being born, making it here on earth in this incredible school of life is an incredibly dope opportunity to fully express your liberation of your mind, body, and spirit.
Absolutely. I mean, when you're trying to be somebody else, you're trying to fit in some other way, you're giving up your liberty. You're choosing some other way. You're not even giving yourself a chance. So, there's what, 8 billion people on the planet? I mean, there's 8 billion flavors of dopeness.
Yes.
So, well, thank you for joining us. We are super excited to be on this journey. I'm Raymundo.
And this is Lindsey Lamb, and you've been a part of listening to Sovereign Space. See you next time.
Peace out, bitches.